What happens when a controlled, famously stoic Hollywood legend finally reaches his breaking point on live television? What happens when the easy banter of daytime TV collides with the unresolved wounds of a man who has spent decades guarding his emotions so tightly they've become part of his public identity? And what happens here, right now, when The View invites Liam Neeson onto its stage, expecting polite conversation, only for tension to detonate in front of millions watching at home? Before we dive into the firestorm, hit that subscribe button for Stage View, give this video a like, and drop a comment to fuel our cinematic deep dives into the moments celebrities wish they could erase. Your support keeps these stories alive. The studio lights were warmer than usual that morning. Audience members fanned themselves with cue cards as the theme music faded, revealing the familiar semicircle of hosts. Joy Behar shuffled her notes with a mischievous smile. Sunny Hostin fixed her posture, ready to press whatever legal angle presented itself. Sarah Haynes leaned forward, already beaming with anticipation. And in the center, Whoopi Goldberg, steady as a lighthouse, adjusted her glasses and glanced at the teleprompter before looking toward the backstage curtain. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, voice calm, "please welcome the incomparable Liam Neeson." The applause came instantly, a wave of cheerful recognition as the curtain parted and Liam stepped out. He moved with that unmistakable slow stride, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes focused ahead, mouth set in a warm but guarded half-smile. He looked tired, though. Not aged, not fragile, just burdened. Like he'd walked through something heavy before stepping on stage. He shook each host's hand, nodding politely, and sat in the guest chair. The applause faded. Cameras adjusted. And the air, though no one could name it yet, trembled with a faint, invisible warning. Whoopi began gently. "Liam, it's wonderful having you. You've been working nonstop. Films, press, activism. How are you holding up?" Liam rested his hands in his lap, clasping them tightly. "I'm managing," he said quietly. "It's been a whirlwind." Joy raised an eyebrow. "A whirlwind? For a man who punches villains for a living." The audience chuckled, but Liam didn't. He just offered a polite smile. Whoopi continued. "Your latest film digs into some heavy emotional territory, grief, guilt, anger. You've said it connected to some real parts of your life." A flicker crossed his face. Not irritation, not yet. More like a shadow passing over a distant memory. "Yes," Liam replied. "The role brought up old things. Things I hadn't expected to confront again." The hosts nodded sympathetically, but Joy leaned forward, sensing opportunity. "Speaking of old things, Liam, you know we have to talk about something you said in an interview a few years back." Whoopi tensed. The audience hushed. Liam froze. And something unseen in him, something brittle, fractured just a little. Joy continued. "You mentioned a moment in your past, a dark one, involving anger, race, violence." Whoopi cut in sharply. "Joy, maybe we give him space." "No," Liam said softly, raising a hand. "Let her finish." Joy's tone sharpened with performative seriousness. "I mean, you told the world you once wandered the streets looking for someone to hurt. That was a big moment. People were shocked. Critics called you dangerous, unstable." The words hung heavy. Liam inhaled, slow and deliberate. "I know what I said," he murmured. "And I explained it was a confession, a shame I carried. Not a threat. Not an excuse." Sunny cleared her throat. "But people did see it as." "People saw what they wanted," Liam snapped, the first crack of heat in his voice. The audience reacted, a few gasps, a few intrigued murmurs. Sarah shifted in her seat. Joy smirked, sensing that delicious instability daytime TV thrived on. Whoopi leaned in. "Liam, we're not here to attack you. But this is a space where we talk about tough things." "Is it?" Liam asked, staring at her. His tone wasn't insulting, just painfully blunt. The temperature in the room dropped. Whoopi exhaled. "Yes, it is." Liam looked out toward the audience. His eyes lingered on random faces, searching for something he couldn't define. "You know," he said, his voice low and trembling at the edges. "Every time I sit down for an interview, someone brings that story up. No matter the project, no matter the message, someone digs it up, tosses it on the table like a grenade." Joy crossed her arms. "Liam, it was big news." "It was my shame," he fired back. "My mistake. My burden. And I brought it up because I thought honesty mattered. Because I believed admitting a horrible thought from decades ago would show how far someone can come." The audience fell silent. "It wasn't a confession to be weaponized," he said. "But that's what happened. He gestured broadly to the invisible media ecosystem, turned it into ammunition. Hold on, Joy protested, but Liam wasn't done. Every time I try to move forward, someone pulls me back into the worst moment of my life. And you all, he looked directly at Joy. You don't ask because you care. You ask because it makes good TV. Gasps. A few nervous laughs. A shout from the back. Oh! Whoopi stepped in, gently but firmly. Liam, breathe. We hear you. But the audience deserves context. They hear a statement like that. They want clarity. I've given clarity, Liam said. Again and again. But it's never enough. Joy leaned back, unfazed. Well, we're a talk show. We ask questions. And I'm a human being, Liam retorted, voice escalating. Not a headline you can recycle whenever ratings dip. The audience roared, some in shock, some in excitement, some loving every second. Whoopi put up both hands. Liam, look at me. Just look at me. He did. Slowly, breathing hard. We're not trying to hurt you, she said. We just want to talk. He stared at her, chest rising and falling, eyes burning with a mixture of frustration and something deeper. Something like exhaustion. This wasn't supposed to be another interrogation, he whispered. And for the first time, the audience didn't react. They simply watched. Whoopi nodded. Then let's take it step by step. Tell us what you wish people understood. Liam inhaled shakily, fighting to regain control. But the damage had already begun spreading across the table. Joy opened her mouth. Whether to challenge him again or defend herself, no one knew. But she didn't get the chance. Liam suddenly leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice sharp as broken glass. I'm tired of the sanctimony, he said. Tired of being treated like a monster because of something I admitted in a moment of honesty. I said it to show growth. But none of you care about growth. You care about the headline. Whoopi shot a glare at Joy, silently telling her do not escalate this. But Joy, being Joy, could not resist. That's unfair, she said. And you know it. And the audience reacted like she had just lit a fuse. Liam turned his head slowly toward her, eyes narrowing. Do I? He asked. And that was the moment, the exact moment. The tension began to mutate into something volatile, something alive, something rolling far beyond the host's ability to control. The explosion was coming, and no one, not even Whoopi, could stop it. The air inside the studio had changed, thickened, like humidity right before a storm. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate before zooming in, as though they too sensed they were watching something that daylight television was never meant to handle. Liam remained leaning forward, hands clasped, shoulders tense, eyes locked on Joy with a stare that was not angry, but exhausted in a way that made the room hold its breath. Joy Behar, however, was not one to buckle. She had built her career on navigating heated moments. She scooted back slightly in her chair, not out of fear but out of recalibration, as if adjusting her footing before stepping into verbal combat. Liam, she said, her voice flattening into something sharper. You can't accuse us of milking a situation when you're the one who brought it up originally. That's just fact. The audience murmured, some siding with her, some bristling at her bluntness. Whoopi closed her eyes for a half second, like someone bracing for impact. Liam exhaled through his nose, slow and heavy, the way someone does when they're trying desperately not to explode. I brought it up because I believed people would understand that it was a confession of guilt, a warning about letting emotion take over. I thought being honest was better than hiding behind PR phrases and fake smiles. Sonny leaned in, speaking gently. And it was brave, Liam. It really was. But we also have a responsibility. I'm aware, he interrupted, turning toward her. But responsibility doesn't mean dragging a man through the same fire every time he shows his face. A wave of om-hom rolled through the audience, some agreeing, some simply entertained. Sarah's voice finally joined in. Soft, hesitant. Liam, do you feel like you're still being punished for something you've already taken accountability for? He paused, thinking. His jaw flexed once, twice. Yes, he said simply. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was the quiet truth of a man who had been carrying more than anyone realized. The silence afterward was suffocating. Whoopi leaned closer, lowering her voice. Okay, so tell us. Tell them, what has this done to you? What does it feel like to walk around knowing people see you through that lens? For the first time, Liam hesitated. Not because he didn't want to answer, but because answering meant ripping open a wound he'd spent years stitching closed. Finally, he looked down at his hands. You want to know what it feels like? He asked, voice nearly a whisper. It feels like being frozen in the worst moment of your life while the rest of the world moves on. It feels like waking up every day to someone telling you you're nothing more than your darkest thought. The audience was dead quiet. And I get it, he continued. I'm a public figure. My life isn't fully mine. Fine. But there's only so much a person can take before the weight becomes something else. Before it becomes. His voice cracked slightly. Whoopi noticed immediately. Before it becomes what? She asked gently. He looked up. The emotion in his eyes was raw, stripped down. Before it becomes the reason you stop talking altogether. A few quiet ahs echoed from the seats. Even Joy's expression softened. Not much, but enough to notice. But then she spoke. Well, she began. Silence isn't the answer when people want transparency, Liam. You're in the public eye. And when you say something shocking, people. His head snapped up. Joy, do you even hear yourself? A ripple of tension cracked across the room. Whoopi turned sharply to Joy. Joy, ease up. Joy raised her palms defensively. What? I'm just saying. No, Liam cut in louder now. What you're doing is justifying the constant dragging, the constant rehashing, under the guise of accountability. It's not accountability, it's exploitation. Now the audience reacted. Claps, shouts, gasps. Producers off camera were waving frantically, signaling the hosts to rein things in. Whoopi glanced at them, then at Liam, weighing whether to intervene or let him keep talking. But that decision was made for her. Because Liam stood up. Not abruptly, slowly, heavily, like a man rising from years of buried resentment. A camera operator scrambled to adjust his shot. The host stiffened, unsure whether to stand too or stay seated. The audience leaned forward, hanging on every microsecond. Liam didn't pace. He didn't gesture wildly. He simply stood, hands resting on the back of his chair as he faced the hosts. And by extension, the millions who would eventually see this clip replayed across every social platform within hours. You know what I hate most, he said quietly. People pretending they want a conversation when what they really want is a spectacle. Joy rolled her eyes, barely noticeable, but enough. Liam caught it. And there it is, he said, pointing lightly in her direction without lifting his hand fully. The dismissal. The little smirk. The idea that anything I say can be laughed off. Joy straightened. I'm not laughing. You are, Liam said, on the inside. Whoopi intervened, her voice taking on that authoritative calm she'd perfected across decades. Liam, sit down. Let's talk this through. He didn't look at her yet. Sarah spoke, voice trembling slightly. We're not your enemy. I know you're not, he said. But you're not my friends either. You don't know me. You know the character. This gruff, stoic man who cracks skulls in movies and barely cracks a smile in interviews. Whoopi stood up slowly, matching his height, though her calm was sharper, more controlled. Sit, please. He finally turned to her. And something shifted. His breathing steadied, his shoulders dropped, and for a moment, just a moment, the storm seemed like it might pass. He sat. The audience exhaled collectively, as though they had all been holding their breath. Okay, Whoopi said softly. Now we're talking. Tell us what you want from moments like this. What do you hope people understand? Liam rubbed his palms together, grounding himself. I want them to understand that growth is possible. That admitting your mistakes is supposed to mean something. That being honest shouldn't become a scarlet letter. Sonny nodded. That's fair. But, Liam added, looking at Joy again, it requires people actually listening. Joy bristled. I am listening. No, Liam said bluntly. You're waiting. There's a difference. The room reacted again, sharp, electric. Whoopi stepped between them figuratively, if not physically. Liam, you came here to talk about your new film. Let's pivot if you want. Give yourself space. I don't need space, Liam replied. I need fairness. Producers from the shadows were now signaling wildly, motioning for Whoopi to cut to commercial. But the cameras kept rolling. This was the kind of moment networks dreamed of, even while pretending to panic. Sarah cleared her throat nervously. I think what Liam is saying is that he doesn't want his past to define every conversation. Liam nodded. Exactly. Joy folded her arms. Then stop making it define you. And that was the sentence that cracked something inside him. His expression didn't twist in anger. It didn't harden. It broke. Softly. Deeply. Quietly. Do you think I wanted this to define me? He asked. Joy didn't answer. Do you think I enjoy carrying that shame? Worrying about how people see me? Worrying about who I hurt? Worrying about whether talking about it makes me honest or makes me a villain? His voice wavered. I don't carry it because I want to. I carry it because it happened. The audience was silent. Some people had tears in their eyes. Whoopi, recognizing the shift from anger to vulnerability, stepped in again carefully. Liam, thank you. Really, thank you for saying that. He looked up at her, and for the first time since entering the studio, his eyes weren't fiery, they were tired. Human. But the peace didn't last. Because from somewhere in the crowd, far back enough to be anonymous, close enough to be clearly heard, a voice shouted. Then why did you even bring it up years ago? Liam's head whipped toward the audience. The hosts all jumped slightly. Security shifted near the edges of the stage. And suddenly the fuse, barely restraining itself all this time, snapped. I brought it up, Liam said, rising again, this time faster. Because honesty matters. Because I thought people deserved the truth. Because I believed the world wanted men to admit their flaws instead of hiding them. Because I was trying to say I changed. His voice boomed across the studio. Isn't that what everyone says they want? Growth. Accountability. Redemption. But the moment someone tries, what do? You drag them through mud, replay their mistakes endlessly, remind them they're never allowed to leave that dark corner of their past. Audience members were visibly shaken. Some clapped. Some whispered. Some sat frozen. But the worst part, he continued, voice trembling with emotion, is that you don't want me to be better. You want me to stay guilty. Forever. Because that guilt entertains you. His chest heaved as he finished. Whoopi stood, arm gently raised toward him. Not touching him, but close enough to let him know she was there. Liam, she said softly, come back to your seat. Please. He looked at her. In that moment, the room balanced on a razor's edge, between chaos and calm, explosion and collapse. Liam inhaled, then exhaled slowly. His shoulders sagged. He sat. Whoopi sat with him. The hardest part of the confrontation wasn't over. But something in the air had shifted, from rage to reckoning. And with producers refusing to cut away, the next moments would become some of the most talked-about seconds in daytime television history. Because the storm was still brewing, quiet, low, and ready to break again. And the world was watching. No one spoke for several seconds. Not the hosts, not the producers, not the audience. It was the kind of silence that didn't feel empty. It felt charged, like every molecule in the room was waiting for the next tremor. Liam sat forward again, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on the floor as if steadying himself against an internal earthquake. Whoopi, still turned slightly toward him, kept her voice soft. You okay? He didn't answer immediately. A muscle jumped in his jaw, then stilled. Finally, he whispered, I didn't come here to lose control. Joy exhaled audibly, one of those breaths that comes out before someone realizes how it will sound. It wasn't mocking, but it wasn't gentle either. The audience reacted, some glaring toward her. Liam lifted his head slowly, eyes narrowing just a fraction. What was that? Joy blinked. A sigh. That's all. But everyone could feel it. A sigh can be a weapon. A sigh can be dismissal, irritation, judgment. And right now, Liam's senses were sharpened to a painful precision. Sonny, trying to step in before things derailed again, spoke with deliberate calm. Let's reset for a moment. We're all here trying to navigate a difficult topic. Let's just take a breath. Liam gave a short, humorless laugh. That's the thing. You all want me to breathe, to calm down, to be composed, because that's what makes everyone comfortable. And what's wrong with wanting comfort? Joy asked. Sarah flinched. Whoopi closed her eyes. The audience leaned forward, sensing another flare. Liam turned to Joy, his expression tight. Because your comfort comes at the cost of my honesty. Joy's tone sharpened. You're on a talk show, Liam. People expect emotions. But they also expect control. And what if I don't have any left? He shot back. That line hit like a shockwave. Sarah, startled, whispered, Liam. But he wasn't spiraling. He was confessing. Not rage. Not theatrics. Something deeper. Whoopi leaned toward him, elbows on the table. Talk to me. Seriously. What's going on beneath all of this? For a moment, Liam didn't speak. His breathing steadied, but his eyes looked glassy, almost distant. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, lower, rawer, as if coming from somewhere he rarely let anyone see. I'm tired, he said. Not physically. Not from work. From carrying things. From people assuming they know who I am. From pretending I'm fine because the world likes strong men who never crack. He paused. I crack. The quiet confession hit the room like an emotional detonation. The tough action star, the unshakable force, admitting fragility on national television. It stunned everyone. Even Joy softened. "We all crack," she said gently. Liam shook his head. "Not like this. Not when the cameras are waiting to catch it. Not when people are itching to turn it into a meme." And there it was, the fracture between humanity and spotlight. Sunny leaned in, her voice warm. "Then let this moment be different. Let it be real." But before Liam could answer, a producer off-camera shouted toward Whoopi, whispered urgently, loud enough for the front-row audience to overhear. "Go to commercial. We need to cut now. This is off the rails." The audience gasped. Liam's head snapped toward the voice, then toward the nearby cameras, his expression shifting into something between disbelief and betrayal. "Oh, now," he said. "Now you want to cut? Now that things aren't neat? Now that the truth isn't glossy enough for daytime?" Whoopi looked back at the producers, then at Liam. "Ignore them," she said. "We're staying right here." It was a bold decision, a potentially career-risking one. The audience applauded, a surge of respect for Whoopi sweeping through the room. Joy tightened her lips, clearly conflicted. Liam's expression softened toward Whoopi, gratitude flickering briefly. But the moment was short-lived because another voice in the audience, louder this time, yelled, "You're overreacting." Gasps. Shouts. A few people stood. Security moved subtly. Liam turned toward the crowd, eyes blazing with hurt rather than anger. He stood again, slower this time, but with more purpose. "No," he said, pointing to himself. This isn't overreacting. This is reacting. Reacting to years of being treated like my worst moment is my identity." Sarah whispered toward her mic. "Oh my God. Do you know what it's like," Liam continued, "to wake up every day wondering if the next interview, the next article, the next person on the street is going to throw your past in your face?" He looked around the room, scanning every corner. "It drains you. It hollows you. It makes you dread your own name." A woman in the audience shouted, "We still love you, Liam." He turned to her, his expression softening. I know some of you do. And I'm grateful. Truly." He placed a hand on his chest. "But loving me doesn't erase what others think. What others say. And I'm so tired of pretending it doesn't affect me." Whoopi now stood too, placing herself beside him. Not touching him, but forming a silent anchor. "You're safe here," she said quietly. But the moment was too fragile, too exposed, and too unfiltered for safety to truly exist. A sudden clatter came from backstage, someone dropping a clipboard. The sound jolted Liam's already heightened nerves. He tensed, eyes snapping toward the noise. Whoopi's hand gently lifted. "Hey, you're all right." He blinked hard, regaining himself. Joy leaned forward again, choosing her words carefully this time, though still with her characteristic edge. "Liam, we're not trying to condemn you. We're trying to understand what's happening right now." He turned toward her slowly. "What's happening is that I'm finally saying things I should have said years ago. Instead of burying them. Instead of smiling politely while people poke at old wounds." Joy nodded. "Fair. But you have to admit, you're coming in very hot." Liam's brows drew together. "Because I'm finally done being cold." Some audience members clapped at that. But Joy, emboldened by the energy, leaned in a little too far. "Look, we all have pasts. You're not the only one who's made mistakes." "True," Liam said evenly. "But most people's mistakes don't end up as tabloid headlines for years." Joy paused. "Well, that's the price of fame." And that lit the fuse. Liam's face changed, not enraged, but wounded in a way that cut deeper than anger. "So truth is a luxury for the unfamous?" he asked softly. "Growth only counts when no one's watching? Honesty is only rewarded if you stay small." Joy hesitated, realizing too late what she'd triggered. Liam stepped closer. Not aggressively, but with an energy that felt like gravity pulling the room inward. "I'm not angry that people judged me," he said. "I'm angry that people wouldn't let me heal." Whoopi put a hand between them, not pushing, just a barrier of calm. "Liam, sit with me." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. A broken, painful laugh. "You know what's funny?" he asked. "If I had lied all those years ago, if I had hidden everything, none of this would be happening. People would still think I was some flawless hero. But I told the truth. I tried to be better. And that honesty became my punishment." The audience felt that line like a punch. Sunny whispered, "That's powerful." But Liam wasn't done. He leaned on the table, palms flat, voice trembling with both fury and sorrow. I came here today to talk about my film, my work, my craft. But instead, I'm standing in front of the world begging for the right to be human. Whoopi swallowed hard. You don't have to beg. He shook his head. Feels like it. A tear, just one, escaped the corner of his eye. The audience gasped. Liam brushed it away quickly, almost angrily. Sorry, he muttered, stepping back. Whoopi stepped closer. You don't have to apologize. Not for that. Not for feeling something. Joy opened her mouth, maybe to comfort him, maybe to regain control, but Liam held up a hand. Don't, he said. Joy froze. I don't want platitudes. I don't want sympathy for the cameras. I want understanding. Real understanding. The room was still, mesmerized. Liam took a deep breath, exhaled, and sat again. The hosts followed. Whoopi spoke first, her voice nearly a whisper. We're here. Say what you need. And Liam did. Slowly. Carefully. Vulnerably. I just want to be seen, he said. Not as a headline. Not as a scandal. Not as a past mistake. But as a man trying, every day, to be better. This time, the applause wasn't sensational. It was soft. Warm. Human. But this episode, this story, this storm, it wasn't finished. Because what came next would push everything, even the controlled world of live television, to its breaking point. If you want the shockwave, the final climax, the aftermath, and the media explosion, say. The studio lights dimmed just slightly, as if the room itself sensed the tension drifting back in like a returning storm. The audience was restless, some leaning forward, others sitting very still, unsure whether they were about to witness reconciliation or another explosion that would dominate headlines for weeks. The red recording light blinked steadily, waiting to capture whatever would unfold next. Adele shifted in her seat, her fingers lightly tapping the edge of the armrest, not out of nerves but calculation. Joy Behar inhaled through her nose, straightening her cards even though she no longer planned to read a single one. And the world seemed to lean in. A heavy silence settled between them, one that wasn't aggressive this time, but expectant. It felt like standing outside a door you're not sure you want to open. Joy's eyes dropped to the floor for a brief moment, a flicker of vulnerability catching Adele off guard. When Joy finally looked back up, something in her face had softened, not out of defeat but realization. It wasn't fair, she said quietly, as if speaking more to herself than the cameras. The way I came at you at the beginning. I wasn't trying to paint you as someone who abandoned her fans. I was trying to get a rise like we do on this show. But that doesn't mean it was the right move. Adele didn't respond immediately. Instead, she watched Joy, studied her, as if trying to determine whether the moment was genuine or another performance crafted for daytime television. Then, slowly, she leaned back, exhaling a breath she'd been holding long before the interview even began. You know, Adele said, her voice steady but carrying that emotional undercurrent she never hid. People think being on a stage or doing interviews means you're bulletproof, that you prepare yourself for everything. But sometimes it's the smallest jab that hits the biggest bruise. Joy nodded, a small but sincere gesture. The audience, even those who typically clapped at any sign of agreement, stayed silent. They could feel this wasn't a moment to interrupt. Adele continued, I get that it's your job. I really do. But when you said what you said earlier, it brought back a lot of things. The pressure, the guilt, the second guessing every decision I made during a time when I wasn't even sure if I could keep going. That tour cancellation, it broke me more than it broke anyone else. And sometimes I still have trouble explaining that without feeling like I'm making excuses. Joy's fingers curled over the edge of her cue cards, gripping them lightly. You're human, she said, even when the world forgets it. Adele let out a soft, almost incredulous laugh. Well, tell that to Twitter. The audience finally released their tension in a wave of relieved laughter. It wasn't the comedic roar that typically filled daytime studios. It was the sound of people exhaling all at once after holding their breath too long. Even Joy chuckled, tapping her stack of cards on the table as if signaling a shift. But, Adele added, her tone once again dipping into something serious enough to command silence, I also understand why you asked what you asked. Artists, celebrities, whatever label people give us, we get held to a different standard. Sometimes the wrong standard. And I think maybe that's why people watched this today. They wanted to see whether we'd fight or whether we'd talk. Joy lifted her eyebrows. We did both. Adele nodded. We did. There was a beat, a moment suspended in the air like the final note of a song before the applause. It seemed to stretch longer than the cameras allowed, as if the world outside the studio momentarily paused. Joy cleared her throat. You know, Adele, I may come off blunt, sharp, sometimes intentionally provoking. It's part of the show. It's part of the job. But I'll admit, she paused, as if the words weighed more than she expected. You surprised me today. Adele tilted her head. How so? Most people would have either crumbled or stormed off, Joy said with a small shrug. You stayed. You pushed back. You made a point without turning it into a spectacle. You reminded the audience, that these conversations matter more than the sound bites we cut them into. Adele's eyes drifted toward the rows of audience members, some smiling, some appearing emotional, some simply trying to absorb the moment. She looked back at Joy. I didn't stay to prove anything. I stayed because I'm tired of people speaking for me. If I walk away, it feels like I'm letting them. Joy pressed her lips together, absorbing that statement. For the first time since the interview began, she looked less like a host and more like someone wrestling with her own internal justification. Then, surprisingly, she set her cards aside completely and folded her hands on the table. Then let me ask you this, Joy said, her voice steady, genuine. What do you want people to walk away with after today? After all this? Adele took her time. She didn't rush the answer. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't packaged. It was pulled from somewhere deeper, somewhere the public rarely got to see beyond the lyrics. I want them to know that I'm still learning, she said finally. That I'm still figuring out who I am, what I want, how to love and live without losing myself. I want people to know that being famous doesn't make any of that easier. If anything, it makes it harder. But every day, every decision, every song. I'm trying. I'm showing up. Even when it scares me. Joy's eyes softened. That's more honest than anything we had in our notes today. Adele smiled faintly. Probably why it wasn't in the notes. The studio filled with another wave of laughter. This time warmer, more relaxed, as if the entire room had collectively stepped into a different emotional temperature. The tension that once felt sharp enough to slice through the air had dissolved, replaced by something unexpectedly gentle. But the show wasn't over yet. Joy leaned back, glancing toward the producers behind the cameras who were signaling that they still had a few minutes left. She turned back to Adele with a thoughtful expression. Before we wrap, she said, I want to give you the space to say whatever you feel you haven't had the chance to. Adele considered it. Then she nodded. All right. The room went still. I'm grateful, she said simply, for the people who stuck by me, for the ones who had questions but still listened, for the ones who didn't understand me but didn't write me off, and even for the people who challenged me, whether gently or aggressively, because it forced me to look at myself, forced me to grow. Her voice lowered, the emotion threading through it unmistakable. And I'm grateful for moments like this. They're uncomfortable. They're messy. They show the cracks in our facades. But they also remind us we're human. And sometimes you need a moment where everything gets stripped back so you can see what's actually real. Joy swallowed. I don't usually get emotional on this show. Adele smirked. I have that effect on people. Joy pointed a teasing finger. Don't get cocky. Adele laughed. Too late. The tension had shattered completely now, replaced with something lighter, fuller, something that made the studio feel a little smaller and a little brighter. The audience seemed to glow with relief, sensing the resolution they didn't realize they were waiting for. Joy placed a hand over her cards again, but this time not to steady herself, this time as a small gesture of closure. Adele, she said, thank you for coming on. Truly, you didn't have to, and you certainly didn't have to stay. But you did, and I think this conversation, as rocky as it was, will mean something to a lot of people. Adele nodded. I hope so. The red recording light flickered, signaling the final seconds of the segment. Joy looked into the camera with the practiced ease of someone who had done this for years. We'll be right back after this break, she said, her voice returning to its broadcast timbre. Stay with us. The applause swelled, not the sharp, startled kind that followed a dramatic clash, but a warm, rising wave like the closing of a powerful movie scene. Adele stood, smoothing her dress, and Joy rose to shake her hand. Not for the cameras, but for real. As the credits' music faded in and the cameras cut, Joy leaned closer and whispered, Next time, let's try not to traumatize the audience. Adele laughed softly. No promises. But the smile that lingered on both their faces said everything that needed to be said. Two women. Two worlds. One moment none of them expected, but neither would forget. The studio lights dimmed as crew members moved in, and Adele walked off stage with a confidence that didn't come from winning an argument, but from surviving one with her integrity intact. Joy watched her go, her expression unreadable but thoughtful, as if reconsidering something she once believed firmly. Outside the studio doors, the world was already buzzing. Clips from the confrontation were hitting social media. Debates were erupting. Headlines were being written. But none of them, captured the part that mattered most. The part where something genuine happened. Something unfiltered. Something human. And somewhere down the hallway, as Adele stepped into the cool studio corridor, she felt lighter. Not because the pressure was gone, but because she had carried it honestly. And that, she realized, was enough.